Welcome to today's deep dive. So, picture a museum archive. You're probably imagining like pristine, climate-controlled glass boxes, right? Well, today we are stepping into a digital archive that actually wants your absolute messiest, most chaotic emotional garbage. It's called FizzStory Exp.
Yeah, and it takes all that raw human chaos and processes it into this thing called recovery design.
Recovery design. Okay.
Right. Think of it as a brutalist living archive. I mean, in the physical architecture, brutalism leaves raw materials like concrete completely exposed, and FizzStory X does this digitally. It doesn't hide the ugly, messy data of human emotion at all.
It just leaves it entirely exposed for you to actually see.
Exactly.
So if you're trying to picture this, imagine your brain has a digital compost bin. You basically take the chaotic, disposable, everyday scraps of your life, toss them in, and this system breaks them down to cultivate new art and healing.
I love that analogy because just like a physical compost bin needs, the right mix of materials and structure to break things down properly, this digital bin really relies on a rigid architecture.
To process all that emotional chaos, right? So let's talk about that structure. The archive is actually divided into four main zones.
Yeah, so there's play for creative artifacts and work for public-facing hustle.
And then life for private focus and lab for research.
Right. And all the data inside gets tagged with this taxonomy of emotion. So things like hashtag CRY for processing trauma or hashtag FUN for pure play.
Or hashtag IDK for just like undefined chaos. But wait, I have to ask, why try to force something as inherently messy as human emotion into such a rigid, brutalist sorting system? It feels a bit contradictory.
Well, yeah, it does seem restrictive at first, but usually when you tell a story, it is a clear beginning, middle, and end, right? FizzStory actually abandons that linear narrative entirely.
Oh, really? So how does it work then?
Instead of forcing a story, it just builds the sandbox, like the conditions, and then it lets the user's messy emotions build the sandcastles. The infrastructure itself becomes the artifact.
Ah, I see. It just gives the chaos a definitive place to live so you can actually find it and process it.
Exactly. It's about holding the mess, not hiding it.
But, a tagging system doesn't mean much without the data itself. What does human chaos actually look like when it's fed into this machine?
A great example is what they call the snaky cup, which falls under their hashtag Rateheart banner.
Hashtag Rayart. So literally archiving the disposable.
Yeah, the life cycle of that artifact is just perfect. So someone buys a disposable coffee cup in Munster, Ireland, and throws it in the trash. Normal behavior, right?
Right, totally normal.
But then it gets pulled out of the garbage, tagged with a barcode and a date, and added to the play zone. And finally, it gets this digital rebirth.
Like it transforms into a permanent looping GIF in the archive.
Exactly.
Okay, but naming a trash cup an artifact doesn't really explain the human motivation. I mean, why does someone's mental recovery or artistic process depend on turning literal garbage from Ireland into a looping GIF?
Well, it's all part of the system's interaction protocol. Build, ship, tag, break, loop. It represents continuous human processing.
So it's not really about the cup itself.
No, not at all. By taking an isolated, decaying piece of physical reality and elevating it into preserved digital memory, the system honors that fleeting moment.
Wow. It validates the mundane reality of the person who drank from it.
Right.
That actually shifts how I look at everyday disposability. It's almost like a proof of life. And now this entire concept is evolving, right? From a flat 2D web archive into a full 3D spatial storytelling metaverse.
Yeah, so the paradigm shifts entirely. Embodied participation basically replaces the scroll.
So instead of clicking on a tag on a screen, users physically navigate these non-linear stories.
Right. Instead of reading a blog post tagged hashtag FUN, you're literally walking down a hashtag FUN corridor.
Or stepping into an immersive room built entirely out of the hashtag CRY tag. But wait, stepping physically into a 3D block of collective sadness, like a hashtag CRY room, sounds incredibly intense.
Oh, it is.
I mean, that feels way more vulnerable and exposed than just passively scrolling a website.
It's extremely vulnerable. But that vulnerability is the exact psychological mechanism behind recovery design. Stepping into a 3D tagged CRY room allows a person to physically externalize their trauma.
Oh, I see, because you're literally walking into the emotion.
Right. And when you see that others have contributed to this shared space, an isolated, painful feeling transforms into a collective physical environment.
Wow. It must be profoundly validating to inhabit the recovery process alongside others rather than just, observing it.
Exactly. It transforms everyday decay into a shared infrastructure for healing.
So ultimately, FizzStory X takes the idea that recovery and play are just things that happen to us and reframes them as continuous interactive loops.
Yeah, it proves we can take fleeting, disposable moments and turn them into worlds we can actually inhabit.
Which brings us right back to that digital compost bin. So if you had to extrude your own daily chaos into a 3D spatial metaverse right now, which emotional room would currently take up the most square footage? Would it be hashtag CRY, hashtag FUN, or maybe a massive, sprawling hashtag IDK? Something to think about.